Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to take a look at how the TEQ Karoly unit does in the Fusions category Extreme Super Battle Road stage. So Karoly is a pretty good unit and he has a pretty good synergy for SPR teams. He's a really solid unit and honestly he does a great job overall. In terms of Karoly's performance, the reason why he's good for ESBR and SBR stages and other short form content is because units here are able to be stunned. This means that he's able to trigger his passive and also provide a lot of utility. Fusions isn't necessarily a team that's carried a lot of stunning ability, so having a unit like Karoly really helps out in improving the overall utility that a lineup can have. We're going to link him up with Pandel. They do share 3 links, so they are a pretty solid combination, and Pandel also gives him attack and defense buffs, so that's going to be a really nice combination to utilize. Pandel also has the ability to lower enemies' attack and defense, which will synergize well alongside Karoly's stunning abilities. We've got an item active here, so we'll see how he tanks without an item. But for the most part, Karoly should be fine. To recap his passive, he has attack and defense of 260% and launches an additional attack that has a great chance or a 70% chance of being a super attack. He also has 59% extra attack when the enemy is stunned. On his super attack, he has a 50% chance stun. So that first attack is very likely to stun them, and then you're able to get the follow up with a lot of damage. If you don't, then you just have a double chance realistically to stun them, which is also equally good, and we get it there. Took single digits with a item active, which is a very good sign. He does have the support of Pandel, but nowadays the fusion category has a lot more Pandel units, or not Pandel units, I should say Pandel-esque units, so units that generally are good supports and really help out the category. Karoly's only on fusion and crossover, so using a time limit support won't be able to assist him that much, but for the most part he's still got a lot of utility and is still able to be utilized in this stage quite well. Because he has fused fighters, you'll be able to link him up with a lot of units, and you shouldn't really have too big an issue in terms of targeting or using Karoly. He's a good main rotation unit if you have a couple buffs in him, or a couple dupes in him I should say. He'll be able to tank quite nicely, but I think he's definitely still a really good floating option along with a lot of the other Dragon Ball Fusions units. I think they're more supplementary to the category. You can use him as a main rotation with Pandel like I am, which is more than fine, but of course I just think overall it is probably for the best if you float him. His ability to stun is helpful, and he can do some really good damage overall, so there's nothing really wrong with him. You can see here that double triggering of the attack and then the second attack on top of the passive. Really good. Gets the stun off, which is great, and then we managed to finish it off with Weirus. So really nice performance overall by Karoly so far. I think he's done really well, and yeah, I think he's just doing a good job. So for me, quite happy to say he's a very good unit for ESBR and SBR, or at least for this level of in-game content. The only real issue is that he's just not on a lot of categories. You could use him for the super type. You can use him for the super type. You can also use him for the fusion category. That's really about it. He's not on the Super Saiyan, which is a bit weird. He's not on some of the other categories and teams, so he doesn't really have a lot of options in terms of ESBR and SBR to run on. He's not on pure Saiyans, he's not on anything like that. So you can use him for the tech type ESBR, you can use him for the fusion ESBR, and you can use him for the super class ESBR. That's probably where you're going to get the most utilization out of this guy, just considering what he brings to the table. Otherwise, he's definitely probably going to be pretty decent in stuff like Ultimate Clash. I feel like that's also an okay area for him, somewhere where he'll do a decent job and he'll be able to provide some pretty decent results overall. So here we'll utilize a non-damage reduction item, so we'll utilize something like an Android 8 that will just give us extra defense, so we can see how Karoly stacks up with just some extra defense. And then we'll test how much damage he can take without an item on the next turn that he appears out. So overall, I think he's done really well with an item. This is a 55% Karoly. So this is obviously, you know, not necessarily like very juiced up Karoly. So I assume one with dupes should be okay without items, just based on the raw maths. He'll be close to 200k defense. He'll definitely be fine for normals and things like that. Super attacks will still dish out damage to him, but shouldn't be one-hit kills. So yeah, pretty dope. Pretty good performance. Didn't get the stun here, which is basically a big disappointment. Whenever Karoly does not get the stun, it's pretty bad. He took 4k on a type disadvantage with 150k defense, so that is something to take note of, and people who have dupes probably just be of mind that that's kind of where he is. But yeah, overall he's still pretty solid. I mean, his kit is great. You know, once you give him a couple dupes, he'll have a way higher crit chance. He'll have way higher base stats, of course, but also he'll have quite a good, you know, like quite a good level of additionals as well, and he can potentially fire off 3 super attacks, which is something, you know, that's obviously very cool. The ability to fire 3 super attacks is pretty nuts. But also it's just something that, you know, does help overall, because he could possibly eliminate a unit with the first 2 and then possibly stun a 3rd unit with the next one. So overall a pretty interesting kind of, you know, mechanism for Karoly there, just to take advantage of and just to utilize, which I think is really cool. Obviously I do have him paired up constantly with a 30% attack and defense support, but I think for the most part this isn't a huge issue, as like I said, it's a lot more common now to have these kind of supports on the fusion team than it was before. And if you run him as a floater, then it's not an issue either way, because you're not keeping him out for a long period of time, so supporting him is not so imperative. So here we have no item, so we should get a good idea if he does take a couple hits to just see what kind of damage he'll take and where he'll sit with that damage. But obviously we have attack lowered the you know, the Yakon quite a bit, so we won't see necessarily the full power in terms of damage, but I think we'll still see a fairly like good representation just of how he does, at least specifically with this team build. And obviously double digits there. That is because Yakon is quite lowered. I would estimate around 33k or so is probably where we're going to be sitting. And we'll take a look at how he does in the next event, because we can actually clear up this this unit here with the rest of the team, and then we'll be able to hopefully not get the Dokkan attack and then set up Karoly with the Dokkan attack, which will be good. The only issue I think Karoly has for long form events is his defense. Like even Rainbowed, this unit with support is sitting somewhere closer to the, you know, under the 200k mark, which isn't a bad defensive stat at all. But for these super mega hard long form events, it's just not a stat that's going to hold up in the long run. It's not something that's going to be able to you know, pull through and really help you out. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, we're going to get the Dokkan attack here, some really good setup. We also have the support of the Weirus unit, and he's not getting attacked until after he supers, although that's not really anything too important. So we'll get a good look at his damage, and then we'll be able to get a good look at his stunning mechanism, and then we should see probably the best way for him to tank without an item. So we'll get a good idea of if he can tank without an item. Obviously he's got double support on this rotation, so if he does, it still is slightly with a grain of salt, just because, yeah, it is still quite a lot of support on this rotation. but we'll see how he does with the Dokkan attack. Obviously, the only unfortunate thing is he couldn't get his stun off beforehand. That would have obviously made his attack do a lot of damage. And hopefully he gets the stun on the Majin Buu unit, though he doesn't. But a decent amount of damage, and 16k on a type disadvantage normal attack, and 60k on a type neutral attack. Bearing in mind that the two Buus are quite tough units, I think that's perfectly fine. Dupes will help him quite a bit. Dupes will help him probably take close to single digits on both, and I think that's fine. No item runs on for every unit, and he got very unlucky with his inability to stun there. Stunning the Buu would have prevented the majority of that damage, and he would have been fine. So yeah, a good sign from Karoly, and I think we're going to leave it there. So we'll just exit the stage, and yeah. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Karoly is any good based on the review and the Esbr video? Have you used him in any content? What content do you plan on using him in? And yeah, just want to know your thoughts on the Dragon Ball Fusions units in general. They are pretty all over the place, but they look pretty good in general, and they do help out some people. But bye!